Welcome back, everybody. Excited to have Coach David Bartels with us and founder of the Easy.Seller Leads community for round two today, touching on lead conversion. So if you did miss our session last Wednesday on mindset and approach, it is available on our YouTube. So definitely go check that out. David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing today?
I am doing quite well. Excited to really get into a lot of different things with finding the right leads, some scripting, both phone and text, overcoming objections, and then converting those into listings.
Let's go. It's my favorite subject, actually.
Perfect, perfect. So where do you want to start on kind of finding the right leads? One thing I always am talking to our customers about is knowing your market, right? You know, there's not one set of leads that just blanket across the country works well for everybody. So knowing who you work well with and knowing what's going on in your market are two of my top recommendations. But is there any kind of broad plans or a direction you would like to take that in?
Well, I don't really think that it matters what the lead source is. There are some lead sources that have a tendency to convert a little more often than other lead sources, right? There are life events that take place that often cause people to think about doing real estate. Some things that come to mind might be divorce or death or debt. Maybe it's a relocation. There are lots of reasons why people move. Maybe they're downsizing. They've got a second or third home that they don't want to deal with anymore. Those are reasons that cause people maybe to have a conversation. For me, my mission every day and the thing that I preach every single day is that I just want to have conversations, more conversations with people who want to have a conversation about selling. And that's not as easy as it sounds, right? Because the way the real estate marketing is, most of us have this chasing mindset. And so we're trying all kinds of things, but the big challenge that most people have is inconsistency. They're doing random acts of marketing and they're wondering why they're not super successful at what they're doing. So I don't get hung up in the lead type, but for those people that weren't here last week, let me just mention. So one of the themes that we talked about last week was, once you've identified a lead and you're having a conversation with somebody who wants to have a conversation about selling, failure to convert the lead is not the fault of the lead. We have to own that. Okay. And so one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we're using tactics or conversation tools in order to move these leads to the next logical step, whether or not they're ready to transact today, 60 days, or a year from now. Because the way I always looked at it is that I'm going to need that listing in 6 months or 12 months too. So what am I doing today to make sure that I've got an opportunity to compete for that lead when they're ready?
Absolutely. Yeah. For us, it's really about building your seller pipeline. And the more conversations you're having, the more appointments you're gonna set, and in the end, the more listings you're gonna take, whether that's tomorrow or, like you said, 6 months down the road.
Right. And the rule of thumb that I use is 5 conversations a day. I tell people you got to need to be having at least 5 conversations a day. And that's whether or not you're calling people in your sphere or you're calling cold prospects. It doesn't really matter. You've got to figure out how to have 5 conversations a day, not 5 attempts, conversations a day with people who want to talk about doing real estate. Now, I focus on listings for the most part, but just 5 people who want to talk about buying or selling a home.
Absolutely. Yeah. And do you have, I guess, where would you draw the line between, a contact and a conversation about real estate? Because, especially if you're marketing by phone, you're going to talk to people. We average on about 10 to 12% contact rate. Every one of those isn't going to be a conversation about real estate. So, where do you draw that line?
Well, a lead is just a lead. When you buy a list of absentee owners, for instance, right? It could be an expired, canceled, absentee, likely to sell. These are just names, okay? And our responsibility is to make contact with them. There's various ways that you can call them, you can text them, you can email, you can door knock, you can send them mail. There are lots of ways to contact them. But all you're simply trying to do in the beginning is identify hand raisers, identify people who want to have a conversation about selling a house. And until then, it's just a name. It's not even a lead. And then our job is to figure out where they are in the market and take the time to find out what they're trying to do and then begin the process of helping them do it. And when we do that, everything kind of comes together.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the next thing we're going to talk about is some scripting there. I know you have worked with and put together your own script book for both phone and text. Everybody does it a little different. What is your approach to, the verbiage and things to say, whether you're calling somebody or texting them?
So go back to last week, and where most real estate agents are thinking that when they go on a listing presentation, and I don't like that word, but when they go on a listing presentation, that they're on a job interview. I'm a good agent, you need a good agent, hire me to be your agent, right? And so, and as a result of that, most of the initial communication we have, most of the scripts that I see from some other people that are teaching, sounds a little like, hey, what are you thinking? Hey, this is David. I saw that you've got a second home that you may or may not be using. A lot of people are selling those properties to take advantage of the inflated prices. What are you thinking about? What are your thoughts about real estate for 2026? We're starting conversations like that. And if you go back to what we talked about last week, I'm like, people aren't choosing an agent. They're choosing a strategy, and then they're hiring an agent to implement that strategy. And so I know that weeks or months before somebody decides that they're going to sell a house, that they're going to start gathering information first. And I want to be the first agent in to meet with them. And if I can't be the first agent in to meet with them, I want to be the last agent to meet with them. And so all my communication, all my marketing communication, whether or not I'm calling them on the phone, I'm sending them a text message, I'm sending them an email, I'm writing a social media post, all of my communication is really around research and strategy. So I'm offering them research or strategy that they can use to formulate an opinion, because basically they're gathering information from different sources, including interviews with multiple agents, to identify, what are you going to do different to sell my house? What do you think my house is going to sell for? How long do you think it's going to sell my house? What's going on in the market? And they take all that and they synthesize all that into their own opinion. And I was listening to Alex Hormozy yesterday. So I don't know how many of you know who Alex is, but I'm a big fan. And so Alex was saying, stop selling them your strategy and start giving them the strategy they think is going to work best. Right? Because if you think about a home seller, every home seller has their own strategy. They've got a very, and oftentimes, strong opinion about what their real estate transaction is going to look like, what their sale is going to look like. And so what we want to do is we simply want to find out where they are, what they're trying to accomplish, and do the best we can to help them get there. Along the way, even if we disagree with their strategy, we can give them new information. We can give them all the information, they say, an alternative to their thinking, and allow them to make a new decision based on new information. And that's really what it is. So when I call somebody or I message somebody, the messaging is super simple. So I like FSBOs, expires, and cancels. I like absentee. I like likely to sell lists. I like the downsizing stuff too. And so when I reach out to them, I'll start with FSBO because that's easy, and then we'll maybe get into the more complicated stuff. Hey, I saw that you listed your house for sale by owner. Would it be okay if I sent you more information about our strategy to get it sold fast and for your price or more? Right? That's the way we started, because if they say that's much easier to say yes. Now contrast that to what a lot of the old school coaches are doing, what they're teaching. They're saying, hey, I saw that you listed your house for sale by owner, and they launch in a whole bunch of qualifying questions like, well, how long are you going to do that? When are you going to start talking to agents? And we get into and put them back on the defensive, and then we want to transition into, hey, you need to talk to me. And for me, I want to make it easy for them. I don't want to create resistance. I want to remove resistance. And the best way to engage somebody is to offer them information that can be construed. All of these people have something in common. Every FSBO, expired, canceled, absentee owner, for instance. For FSBOs, they're like, the problem they're trying to solve, my house isn't selling. For expires and cancels, my house didn't sell. For an absentee owner or a downsizing, they're in a different situation, but what they are thinking is about, they want to avoid that pain. They want to avoid that frustration, and they want a smooth transaction. And so the reason I kind of zero in my research and I create these lead magnets around a 10-day strategy to sell houses fast and for their price or more is because it appeals to every seller in every market. Every seller wants to sell their house fast. Every seller wants to sell it for the most amount of money. And when I change the approach and stop going on interviews, I sure did a lot of interviews for somebody who didn't want a job, right? I mean, that's why we get into real estate, right? I'm not doing all these interviews, getting people, hire me, hire me, hire me. And instead of a communication style that says, I'm a good agent, you need a good agent, hire me as a good agent, when I shifted that and I understood that they were choosing a strategy and then hiring an agent to implement it, all my communication changed as a result. So I just started leading with offering them information that would qualify as research, information that would allow them to formulate a strategy. I'd give them all the information for free, and then they hire me to implement it. And two things happened when I shifted my strategy. I got a lot more listing presentations because more people wanted to talk to me. And then I converted a much higher percentage of those because I was solution oriented as opposed to hire me because I've got all this experience and you can trust me to take care of the details, which is not exactly the way agents do it, but that's the lean.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of agents approach it the same way. So, offering somebody, especially, like a FISBO in this example, a strategy to do it, like that's really going to differentiate yourself from, the 20 other agents that just called him that morning, right?
Well, just think about it. I mean, I used this analogy last week. If I'd have met if I'd have met my wife and I said, "Hi, nice to meet you. You want to get married?" She wouldn't be my wife, right? I mean, we start too hard. We go too fast, and we need to earn the trust. We've got to demonstrate our expertise. We've got to justify our value. And the best way to start a relationship is simply by offering them some information that they can say yes to. So if I could use a dating analogy, when I meet somebody that I want to get to know, I don't go from, hey, you want to get married? I go from, hi, nice to meet you. How about a walk? How about a cup of coffee? Hey, can you chat a couple of minutes? It's the first 90 seconds that's awkward, right? Think about any new encounter that you meet with anybody. It doesn't have to be in a dating situation, but the most awkward part of the relationship is probably the first 90 seconds. And when I had a bunch of telemarketers making calls for me to these types of names, the one thing that I used to teach them, I said, listen, if you can just survive the first 90 seconds, that 90 seconds could turn into 20 or 30 minutes. And then you can have a meaningful conversation that can turn into a transaction. And so we just got to figure out how to solve for that first 90 seconds. And if we can do that, we're probably good. And the best way to get by that first 90 seconds is to offer them something that they may be interested in learning more about. And if they're in the market, if they're thinking about selling their house, they're going to be open to receiving information that can be used as research. And it doesn't have to be what I do. It can be anything. It can be a home valuation. It could be a seller checklist. You've got to have something that you want to give them for free because you're also triggering law of reciprocity. And so when you start giving people, you're making an investment in that relationship. And at some point in the future, if they got value from that investment, they're going to want to repay you. And so when I make a phone call, when I'm calling a lead, even a qualified lead, somebody who's indicated they're interested, the likelihood of me converting that into some sort of transaction is closer to 0% than 10% in the beginning. But if I can get face to face with them, I increase the likelihood of doing a transaction to about 50%. And if I can add value, okay, over a meeting or two, whether or not at that point it transitions to phone or Zoom or in person, if I can add value to that, I can increase the likelihood of winning that business to 80 or 90%. And most agents, what they're doing is that they're trying to go from 0 to 100% in 3 minutes. And in a 3 minute conversation, all we can do is give people enough information to say no and not enough information to say yes. And so we want to start the conversation by making some sort of offer of value. And you got to keep in mind, not everybody that answers the phone is going to be ready to transact. So let's go to an absentee seller for a minute. All right. So if I were calling an absentee owner, I know what the potential pain point is. If they're an out-of-state owner in particular, the potential pain point is this is going to be a hassle, right? I mean, we've got to, so if you've ever worked with absentee owners, think about all the objections that you've gotten from them. And so you know that when you're going to try to open a conversation with somebody who's going to have those similar concerns, we want to address that for them. They're trying to figure out, well, how do I sell it from here? Okay. How do I manage that process? How do I control the process? How do I show the property? How do I prepare the home for sale? These are some things that, questions that they're going to have before they decide they're actually going to sell it. So if you know that going into it, you can be prepared to address those things before they become objections. And so I would prepare a lead magnet for that. So I might open my phone call conversation with, "Hey, this is David with ABC Realty. I just, I saw that you own a house, but you don't live in the area, and we're seeing a lot of people that are taking advantage of the equity these properties have accrued over the time. And I'm not sure if you're thinking about selling, but if you are, I'd love to send you my 10-day strategy to get it sold fast and for your price or more. I just need your email address." And I wait for the email. And if they say, "Okay, sure, I'll give you my email address," then I know I've just identified somebody who is very to whatever it is they're trying to avoid, because everybody wants to sell fast and for your price or more. I can do, "Hey, if you're thinking about selling, I'd love to give you my perfect home prep guide. If you're thinking about selling, I would love the opportunity to to send you our guide on how to sell your property from another state." Right? Whatever it is, you can get them to raise their hand, and then you can just get them to say, "Yes, I'd like to see that," and then you send it to them. And then you say, "Okay, great, I'm going to send that over to you. But why I got you over the phone, would it be okay? Is there a way that I could
Where are
take
you
a
going
look at
home?
the house? Hello. Is there a way that I could take a is there a way that I could take a look at the house and start to get a feel for what the market opportunity is, so that we can have something tangible to talk about the next time we meet?" You're muted, Sean.
There we go. Sorry about that. Especially somebody that's out of the area too. They're not going to have the local knowledge that everybody on this call can bring to the table. You know what homes are selling for in your area. You know what the comps look like. So, bringing that value, that insight, that expertise, to somebody who lives, 1,000 miles away, that's huge.
Yeah, and remember, it's not even that, but they really need boots on the ground, right? It just feels more complicated when you're far away. The truth of the matter is, it's not any more complicated to sell a house that you live a block away from than you live 1,000 miles away from. I mean, it's if you're going to use an agent, the process isn't really that different, except maybe we have to overnight the closing docs for you. But outside of that, the process of selling the house is exactly the same. But most people don't understand that. They don't sell houses every day. They do it every few years or longer than that. And so our job is simply to give them the information they need to feel comfortable, moving forward. Okay. So
And I was just going to say, I talk to a lot of people that are working absentee owners, because it's definitely one of the best audiences to go after for listings, who they do everything through Zoom, and somebody's at 1,000 miles away. They don't have to be down the street.
yeah, I just closed a transaction in San Francisco. Okay. I'm in Florida. I never saw the house. I did it all over Zoom. All right. And I would say 80%, because I'm a broker in Florida and California. I'd say 80% of my transactions are in California, and I don't see the house. I do it exactly over Zoom. So there's no problem doing that the way. It's not ideal. It's better to do it in person if you can, but there's no issue doing it remote via Zoom.
More than one way to skin a cat, right?
100%. And so can we I want to take this scripting one step further, because we talked about, if you try to explain your whole process and build all your value in just one phone call, you just give them enough information to say no and not enough information to say yes, right? So think about that. So I don't want to. So what do you do? Well, you got to understand what the mission of the phone call is, and this people get this wrong all the time. They think my mission is to qualify them and make sure that they're ready to go right now and get face to, and then go from there. For me, all I'm trying to do, my only mission, the only thing that I'm trying to accomplish, is to get face to face. Everything that I say or do is designed to get face to face with that lead. Because remember what I said, my odds are close to zero that I'm gonna get anywhere on that first call. But if I can get face to face, my odds of winning that listing goes up to about 50%. I mean, think about NAR, National Association of Realtors survey of buyers and sellers, say 60% of sellers choose the first agent they meet with. So I want to be the first agent in there. And so when you're catching people at research mode before other agents really want to get in there, you're dramatically increasing the likelihood that you're going to win that listing. And if you can't be the first agent in there, you want to be the next agent in there, because the odds get higher. So if you're not the first agent, the odds get higher that the next agent is going to be the one to list that house. And so I'm always trying to just get in the house, because I need to get in the batter's box, and I want the opportunity to take a good solid swing at the pitch. All right. And so that's what I'm going to do. And so when I get somebody on the phone, I'm asking, all my questions are about about getting face to face with them. Now, absentee's a little tougher because they're very likely not in the area, but I can go see the house and I can follow up with a Zoom meeting. And the reason that it's important to get face to face because you're a faceless voice on the phone. You're easy to blow off. You're easy to ghost. But once you get face to face, even if it's on Zoom, even ideally in person, once you do that, you increase the value. And when you add value, okay, when you help them strategically, you help them understand their options, and you share a strategy with them that they're like, yeah, that makes total sense, then it makes it harder for them to say no because law of reciprocity is kicking in, and they want to be able to say yes. And they're not going to take your strategy and give it to another agent, and they're not going to take your strategy and sell for sale by owner because they can't execute the strategy. They're going to hire the author of the strategy to implement it. Okay. And that's really what we're trying to do. So we've got to get face to face. So when, you can throw common objections at me all day long, but the way that I'm going to overcome those objections is by getting face to face. I'll give you an example. A common objection. Well, how much can you sell my house for? Okay. Or an absentee owner might say, yeah, I want to sell the house. Bring me a buyer. I'm not selling it unless I get $500,000. Does that sound familiar? Okay. So sure, if you got a buyer, I'll sell it. So let's deal with that. And then we'll talk about other objections. So what I said, great. When can I see the house? They say, how much can I say? I don't know. I'm going to pull the market research, but in order for me to tell you what I think your house is going to sell for and the strategy you need to use to get that price or even more, I need to see the house. Wednesday or Thursday. And I get face to face with them. And I said, by the way, I'm going to pull the comps. Do you want me to pull the comps and bring them to you? What any buyer is going to look at before they decide to see your house or write an offer for your property? Yes, I'd love to see it. Great. So while we're there, let's allow a few extra minutes so we can talk about price. We can talk about presentation. We can talk about exposure. We can talk about strategy. And that'll give you the information so you can know what the right strategy is when you're ready. You don't have to be ready now, when you're ready to do that. Now, for those of you that wonder what I just said, price, presentation, exposure, and strategy, those are the elements of a listing presentation. I'm never going to go out there and give them a listing presentation. Most of us are getting them on the phone and say, hey, can I come out and give you my listing presentation? And you can see if it's something that might work for you. Well, nobody wants a listing presentation because nobody wants to get sold anything, but they want information. So if I can come out and give them information around price, presentation, exposure, strategy, when I go through those 4 elements, by the end of that, I will have given them a listing presentation. But I didn't create resistance in the process. Through that process, I would have given them enough information that they can make a decision as to whether or not that's the right strategy and whether I'm the right person to implement that strategy for them. They'll know at the end of that call. Okay.
Absolutely.
So that gives you a little idea. So I'm not trying to, they say, well, how much? Well, it depends. Well, I don't want to pay a commission. No problem. The commission that we charge is going to be dependent on the strategy that we use. If we're going to use a strategy that's going to take a long time to sell your house, I got to charge you more than if we're going to use a strategy that's going to sell your house fast and for your price or more. In order for us to determine the strategy, I'd like to come out and see the house, have a conversation with you, figure out what's right for you. And then not only will we develop a written strategy for getting your house sold, but we'll be able to talk about the different compensations options so you can decide whether or not any of those make sense for you or not. It's Thursday or Friday better to do that. Every question that they ask, I need to answer it in person. Okay. They say, I had this example just this morning. I want $290,000 for my house and I'm not paying a commission. Okay. What I train people to do is say, great, when can I see the house? You're going to bring me an offer for $290,000. No, I want to see the house. I want to see what the opportunity is because I'm looking at your listing right now. And for the life of me, I don't understand why it hasn't sold with multiple offers above $290,000. So when can I see the house? Well, I'm not paying a commission. So let me ask you this. If I got you $320,000, would you pay a commission if your net was higher than $290,000? Well, if you did that, great. I'd like to see the house. Is Thursday or Friday better?
All
right?
back.
I'm getting back in the house. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Now, I might be stimulating a bunch of questions for you guys. So write the questions down, write your objections down. And when we get the Q&A here in a few minutes, I'll be happy to just tell you exactly what you should say, or at least give you the tone so that you can get back in.
Yeah, we'll have Q&A here in just a few minutes. So definitely keep those in mind there. So And we talk a lot about the phone aspect of it. When you're getting in front of somebody via text, is it a lot of the same messages? Just end goal, get in the house, get face to face, get in the house.
I 100. Well, when the approach is a little different. So the text introduces one thing. So look, at my peak, I was spending about $15,000 a month on telemarketers. So that was the year I did 173 transactions, me and just a couple of showing agents. Okay. And so I did 173 transactions that year. We were spending 15 grand a month on telemarketing, and we were just grinding it out, hundreds of calls a month or hundreds of calls a day. And we started experimenting with texting because people weren't answering the phone. And when they answered the phone, they were hanging up when they heard the word realtor. Now, if anybody has ever locked into a desk for a 2-hour cold call session, you know exactly what I mean. So the way it started is we stopped leaving messages. So we'd try and answer, and then we instead of leaving a voicemail, we sent a text. And everybody should try this, okay? There's no reason to leave voicemails, all right? You're just going to have your heart broken, and it takes a lot of extra time. So get off the phone, have some prepared texts that you can copy and paste, or use a system that's got a template that you can just resend it. And the message, hey, I just tried calling about our 10-day strategy, or whatever your hook is. You need a magnet. I just tried calling about the home that that you have, and want to see if you're thinking about selling, want to see if I can get you more information about how to sell it fast and for your price or more. Just reply with your email address and I'll get it over to you. That might be exactly the same thing that you say in a voicemail, but it's better sent in a text. Okay. Because today, a lot of people, I'm guilty of this too, don't even listen to voicemails. All right. We'll read text. I transcribe my voicemail and I read them. I don't listen to them anymore. And that's true. And in fact, look at the number of people you can't even leave a voicemail because it's full or it's not set up. And so that's how we started with texting. And what I later learned was, if you had to do one of these, calling versus texting, they're both lousy options. Okay. Let's just get that out on the table. But if you've got to do one of them, texting is way better because 92% of people polled said that they prefer a text message over a phone call. 98% of people read their messages, 90% within 3 minutes, which means I can get my message to the right person 98% of the time. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to convert 98% of the time, but if I'm working hundreds of names at a time, my list has hundreds of names, and I can convert just 1% of those a month, I'm getting a listing or two every single month, right? And so we started experimenting with texting first by, instead of sending a text in lieu of a voicemail. And then we said, you know what? The answer rate is so low. We were experiencing a 9% answer rate. You're getting something 12 or 13%. It's low anyway. And so we started texting instead of those initial calls, and we saw our engagement rate went up. And that's when we started to go all in on that. And we found that texting is just a better conversion. So now the way that I do it and the way that we teach it and what our system does is that we automate those messages. So when we send those text messages out, instead of making hundreds of calls a day, what we do is we only follow up and call those people who said, yes, I'd like to have more information. That's better. Now we're making tens of calls instead of hundreds of calls, and we're only making follow-up calls to those people who said that they want more information. And now they're not cold calls anymore, they're warm calls. And so now when I make the phone call, hey, we were just exchanging text messages. You asked for more information on our strategy to sell your home, from another state. And I wanted to I emailed it over to you. I wanted to make sure that you received it and see if I can, if I can get in to see the house and talk to you a little bit about the different strategies for getting this sold fast and for your price or more, even though you're in another state.
It's
That's a
making your time
different
more efficient.
conversation. What's that?
I was just saying it's making your time more efficient. If you can have five of those calls based on the warm text instead of calling tens if not hundreds, that's going to save you. It's going to save you a lot.
Guys, I don't want to tell anybody that cold calling doesn't work. It works fine. I'm not let me be clear. I'm not saying not to cold call. I'm just saying that you can mix it up a little bit. Here's the other problem. In agent dependent systems where you're making these calls, most agents are giving up too fast. So any kind of marketing that you're doing, it's the right message to the right person at the right time. Okay? And so so what I know, I don't know the data on the absentee stuff because we're really going hard in that absentee. So I don't have a lot of data, but I have a lot of data on the FSBO expired and cancels. And I know that most agents give up after 2 or 3 attempts. They assume that no response means not interested, and that's not really what it means. Oftentimes, no response means it's just not the right time. And so if most agents give up after 2 or 3 attempts, the average number of contacts to convert a FSBO expired to cancel, and it's probably true on the absentee and the likely to list too, is 10, which
Absolutely.
means the older these leads get, the better they get because there's less competition. And so we're giving up too early. So just because, think about how advertising works. I use this analogy all the time. When I'm on a road trip, I don't notice the billboards for food until I'm hungry. I don't notice ads for automobiles until I'm thinking about buying one. Right? They're always there. I'm just not paying any attention. Just like your phone calls and your text messages, they're all your mailers, your door hangers, whatever it is you're sending. Just because they're not responding doesn't mean that they're a bad lead. Oftentimes it means it's the right message to the right person. The timing is just off. And so we're working these, like when we tee up an absentee list, we're running an 18-month campaign on that. So we're going to message these people for 18 months until one of three things happen. They opt in, they opt out, or they ignore us for 18 months. And then we're going to finally give up. And
Right.
you'd be surprised how many people engage after the 15th or 20th message. I mean, it's always a surprise to me because it's easy to prejudge it and say they're not interested, but it really is the right message to the right person at the right time. Now, let me just make one asterisk here because there's a legal disclaimer that I want to make. When you're calling these leads, guys, you got to be super careful not to call people on the do not call list. And those same rules apply to texting. So you should be scrubbing these against the do not call list, and you shouldn't be texting to people that are on the do not call list unless you've got their permission to be able to send it. So and I know that we scrub out the people are on the DNC list when we import your leads into our system, and everybody needs to just make that a standard practice. There's just because the liability is just too high otherwise.
Absolutely. And with us, that's as easy as just checking a box on our lead
100%.
store there. But I wanted to kind of piggyback of what you were saying with the multiple touches. It's not something, regardless if you're calling, texting, emailing, physical mail, door knocking, you can't do it just once. It's never going to work for somebody. I
Right.
always tell people, especially if they're calling different days of the week, different times of the day. If you're calling them Tuesday at 10 a.m., maybe that's when they take the kids to school. They're never going to pick up that time. So
Right.
quit calling them then, right? So
Right.
reach out multiple times. I'm always a fan of multiple avenues as well. So if you can call, text, email, and send a postcard, you're only increasing your odds of conversion there.
Right. I want to bring up one objection on absentee. Okay. So, a common objection that you get on absentee, because I think it's important to address this. And I think agents are missing an opportunity. And so, when you call them, they say, oh, it's rented. Or you send them a text, oh, it's rented. I'm not selling, it's rented. All right. This is something you get a lot on absentee because oftentimes absentee means rented. Okay. That's what it means. It usually doesn't mean second home. Okay. It usually means it's an investment property is rented. When I get that response, here's how you respond to that 100% of the time. If you don't take anything else away from this, take this away. When someone says my house is listed, you say this, no problem. If you can get your price or more right now, would you sell it? Okay. I should say, let me rephrase. If you can get your price or more right now with the tenant in the house, would you sell it or would you wait? That is a very powerful qualifier to figure out, do they want to sell or they're just waiting to sell until their lease is up. So a lot of people have said, I got a tenant in there, I can't sell it until June. Great. No problem. If you could sell it with the tenant in place right now and get your price, would you sell it or would you still wait till June? That tells you everything you need to know about whether or not. Now, let me here's another asterisk. These are my least favorite ways, type of house to sell. Tenant occupied houses. I hate them, but I take them. Okay. And that's the way to figure out whether or not it's somebody who is a potential listing right now or not. And at minimum, it gives you the opportunity to open the door and start building the relationship with them. So when you get to June, you get an opportunity to at least compete for that business. And right now, we're not even competing for the business because we put them on ice and then we want to restart it in June, but they already decided what they were going to do in April.
Yeah. No, and follow up is especially on absentee, almost more than anything else where we do. I think it's where agents can fail a lot of times, because it is being rented out, and there's a contract for the next 6 months, and they lose their follow up, give them a call back in a year. It's, oh well, I sold that property with the agent that called me in May, right? So
Right.
just staying organized and having your follow-up point on game, whether it's mailers or just a drip campaign, like you got to stay in front of these folks.
So let's go back to failure to convert the lead is not the fault of the lead. It is not a bad lead. It's a good lead when someone says, I have a tenant in there and I'm not going to be ready to sell it till June. That's a good lead. It's just not a now lead. All right. They're like, oh, nobody wants to sell. They want to sell. They just have to go. There's a right time. It's the right message, right person, right time. This, listen, what we're doing then prospecting is not fishing and the fish jump in the boat. Stop going fishing and waiting for the fish to jump in the boat. Convert, nurture, okay? Stay in touch with them, build value. What's special about you? Help them solve their problem or help them avoid a problem. Here's the best way to communicate with people, okay? So it doesn't matter if you're initiating the relationship or you're nurturing the relationship. All your communication should accomplish one thing. It should accomplish education. Stop telling, most of us are social media looks like just listed, just sold, and what you had for lunch. Okay. That's a lot of what the social media is. And so rather than do that, your emails are some generic thing that are really designed, for, to build your brand. It's if you're coming from your brokerage, it's building the brand. It's not building your brand, it's building the brokerage's brand. Create your own stuff, customize it in everything that you do, whether or not it's a text message, whether or not it's a phone call, whether or not it's an email, it's a mailer, a flyer, a social media post, it doesn't matter. All your communication to potential clients should be in the form of education. This is how you sell your house fast. This is how you get the most amount of money. This is how you prepare your home for sale. These are the things you should be looking out for, okay? It should be, hey, would you like to know what your home is worth periodically? These are ways to engage because they will consume that when they're ready. Okay, so when their radar goes up, when they get into research mode, they started thinking a little more strategically well before they decide what they're going to do. They will start consuming that information. And when they reach out to you for more, then you know that they are ready. And that's when you really start to add the value. And this is true whether or not you're working with your sphere of influence or you're working from an absentee owner list that you've never had any prior contact with. The style is the same. You give people the information for free, and then you let them hire you to implement it when they're ready.
I love that. Yeah, I really like just the information over presentation aspect of it. Giving them the value and having them come to you for sure. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on, David, before we open it up for Q&A?
Well, I want to say this. So, the whole theme of this is 2026. Get off to a good year in 2026. So, how about this parting shot? Don't wait till 2026. Okay, don't wait till January to get started. Get started right now. So the way I always did, there are a lot of agents that are pulling back. They're taking a breather, and they're like, okay, let's it's going to be January, and in January we're going to do this. No, do it right now. There's a couple of reasons. Number one, the year I did, the year I did the second year, the last year that I was in full-time production was COVID. In February of that year, I just come off a 173 transaction year. And I really wanted to do better than that. I felt like I unlocked the formula and I was really and we got off to a good start. In February, we closed 26 transactions. All right. By the way, by July, I had 0 transactions in escrow. Okay. That was the year of COVID. Right. But we did 26 transactions in February because of all the marketing we were doing in December. And so why the market was quiet, why agents were quiet, why agents were resting, we doubled down on our marketing effort. And the sellers that were thinking about selling the first of the year, we were able to engage them, we were able to meet with them, and we were able to get them listed before why everybody else was asleep at the wheel. And here's one more thing. One more thing here is that the week before, this is Zillow's number. The week before, between Christmas and New Year, is their most heavily trafficked week of the year. There are more unique visitors to Zillow the week between Christmas and New Year. And so when I encounter somebody that says, yeah, this sounds great, but I think we want to get started after the first year, I said, great, no problem, but you're going to miss the busiest week of the year. And they're like, what do you mean? Well, according to Zillow, the week between Christmas and New Year is the busiest week of the year. And so you ideally, if you really want to get the most number of eyeballs, you want to have the most amount of exposure, you don't want to wait until January. You want to get on the market December 23rd, December 24th, December 25th at the latest, and take advantage of all those unique visitors that are going to be coming looking for a property like yours. And that one little thing got me to get people to list at the beginning of December, okay, the middle of December, so we can get them live by Christmas. And we got off to a much faster start in January, and a lot of those transactions will close at the end of January and the beginning and February. And that's the way you get off to a fast start. You don't start off fast in January by waiting until January to hit the gas. You hit the gas right now.
Absolutely. And I mean, kudos to everybody here because, a lot of your colleagues and in competition, like you said, have checked out for the year. We talked to a lot of people. It's all right. Well, I'll start again in January. It's like I say with the gym. Of course, I'm going to start working out and eating healthy in January. Where if I build that, my repetition and my process now, I'm already going to be in it in January. So
Right.
do the work now so that comes to fruition, early
Yeah.
26.
Guys, in this business, activity equals productivity. I cannot tell you how much I work for free in order to get the paid opportunity. Come on, this mindset that if they're not ready to list right now, it's a waste of time. That's crazy thinking. Okay? This is really all about building a relationship. We're not hired guns. We're not contract killers. Come on, we're out there building relationships with people who are very likely to need an agent. So I simply assume the role of their agent. I don't want them to. I don't want to. I don't want to be a real estate agent. I want to be their real estate agent. I want to feel that if you got a dumb question about real estate, you call me with it. You need a handyman, you call me. You need a landscaper, you call me. You want to know what your value, whether or not you should update your kitchen, you call me. You need help with a mortgage or refinance, a contractor, whatever you need. If it's around your house, you call me. I want to be their agent. I want to be their go-to. I'm going to give them all the free information you want because it's those little 2, 3, 4 minute conversations. It's connecting to my friends or their friends attitude, helping them without my commission breath all the time, just helping, giving, sowing into the relationship, because when they are ready, they don't talk to anybody else. They only talk to me. So stop trying to be a real estate agent. Stop thinking about closing deals. Focus on being their agent. Don't focus on getting listings. Focus on getting listing presentations. In fact, don't even think about listing presentations. Just focus on having 5 conversations a day with people who want to talk about selling. And then when you have those conversations, focus on the next logical step, which is going to get face to face with them. And each interaction you have increases the likelihood that you are going to actually get paid. But if I didn't do all that free work, I wouldn't have made millions of dollars selling real estate.
Absolutely. A lot of value there, everybody. I mean, I hope you are all taking notes. So I think right now is a good time to open it up for Q&A. Looks like Tim had asked, are you saying that people who are going to sell in 2026 are already thinking about it now?
1,000%. I mean, when someone says let's go back to the absentee seller. Let's take it one step further. That guy who says, I got a tenant in there till June. Call me in June. Well, listen, people don't wait until June. They get the tenant out and they say, okay, because they don't want a month or 2 or 3 of vacancy, right? They're going to start deciding on what they're going to do, okay, in April. All right. So my rule, and they say, call me in June. And that's 6 months from now. I'm calling them in 3 months. Okay. But more importantly than that, I'm going to qualify them. They say, call me in June. I'm going to say, well, hold on a second. If you can get your price or more, even with the tenant in place, would you sell now or would you wait? That tells me where they are mentally. The answer doesn't matter really, but it gives me a gauge on where they are on the likelihood to sell scale. So the people who are thinking about listing right now, they're going through their research right now. They're establishing their strategy right now, and very likely are choosing their agent right now because they want to be ready to go. And think about this. There are a lot of people who have super busy schedules. They're making these decisions right now, and they may not want to be on the market between Christmas and New Year, but they got a little extra time and they want photos. They want to get all their preparation done. They want to get their house cleaned up. They're going to do their handyman repairs. They get their home ready. There's a lot of things that we can be doing right now so they can go the beginning of January, the middle of January, the end of January. They're doing that footwork now, which is why we have to be in there helping them figure out the right thing to do or not to do. Because just think about the added value of, hey, I'd love to come by and give you do a walkthrough of your house. And why I'm doing that, I can give you tips and strategies on what to do and what not to do. I'm seeing a lot of people undertaking big projects that increase their cost and time that they don't need to do. It's not adding any value. In fact, it's costing them money. So in an effort to help you avoid that, I'd love to come by, spend 15 minutes with you and tell you what I think you should do and shouldn't do when you're ready. Would that be okay? That's research, but I'm getting face to face. I'm adding value. I'm building a relationship, and I'm enacting law of reciprocity. I'm triggering that law of reciprocity.
And for a lot of these people, this is one of the bigger financial transactions they're going to make in their life, right? That's not something that they're going to decide within a matter of minutes. They're going to spend a lot of time thinking about that, doing the research, figuring out the best strategy to, sell it fast and for more than, you want.
Guys, as soon as you realize they're not choosing an agent, they're choosing a strategy, everything will change for you. Once you get over this, it's about me, that they're hiring you because you're great. That's not how it works. They're hiring the best strategy. They're hiring the confidence. They want something deliberate. They want to have high confidence in the person that they're doing. It's either high confidence or high trust. You might not be able to beat their sister, who's also an agent. Okay. But everybody else, you should be able to win. Your strategy is going to win over the relationship in most cases.
Absolutely. What other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself or throw anything in the chat.
So Avery's asking a question: when working long nurture cycles, what cadence of follow-up tends to convert best? All right. So, I mean, for me, the way that I work my cadence, so I nurture multiple ways, and there's multiple channels. So the way that we do it in our sphere of influence program, we are making an offer of value, offering research twice a month on social media, every 2 weeks, every 14 days or 15 days. On email, we're sending 2 educational emails out every single month, and we're sending 1 text a month. These are the people who are in our nurture. It's a lot more aggressive when it's cold outreach, but in nurture, it's a little more patient. We're taking a longer term approach, and we're making sure we're giving them content that we're making sure the content is good enough that they would pay for it. Okay, but we give it to them for free, so they don't opt out. So as long as the content is adding value, they're not going to opt out. Okay, but if it gets too fluffy, they turn it off. Does that answer the question, Avery? So you want to be warm and loving and helpful. Be informative. Remember, before they choose a listing agent, they start with research. Offer them research.
Any other questions for David today? All right. I think that's it here for us today. We really appreciate everybody joining. If you weren't able to catch everything today or last week, everybody will be getting an email here with links to the recorded videos to go back and watch it all. I'd encourage everybody to check out David's coaching at Easy.Seller And perfect, Drew, right on cue. We are offering a special promotion for any attendees here to either webinar. So this will all be sent out to you as well. Drew just put it in the chat. Just a sign up link to our online store. Takes about 5 seconds to create your account, and any order placed through the end of the year, we're going to add an additional $500 lead credits to the account. So $100 value there. So we're looking forward to working with everybody. Reach out to us if you have questions. We have a lot of people here that can help, and we're really looking forward to working with everybody here in 2026. David, thank you very much for your time. I think we're going to be doing some more content together next year that we're looking forward to. So hope everybody here has a Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season, and give us a shout if you need anything else.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me, guys. Talk to you.
Absolutely.
All
Have a
right.
great rest of the day.